The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com.
Say what's on my mind at any given time of day, cause I'm a renegade. Never been afraid to holler about anything.
Welcome into the Sports Renegades here on SportsTownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Stuprich.
And I'm Ryan Risky. Today is the NBA Draft. We will be hosting it here on SportsTownChicago.com. The Bulls pick 22nd.
Yes,
and
they do.
The Timberwolves are picking first, and they're expected to go with Karl Anthony Towns. We'll get to the draft a little later on in the show while keeping you updated on the picks.
Right.
Although right now is a perfect time to just talk about the embarrassment that is the Chicago White Sox. And I have
talk about embarrassing, right?
Yeah, I told my friends my new favorite comedy show on television is White Sox Baseball, and my second favorite show is White Sox Postgame Live. I mean, it's just comical. Watching I don't know if Sale's not pitching, I don't think they could beat AAA teams. This is how bad they look. Adam Eaton can't even get, and Alexi Ramirez can't even get the fundamentals of the game right.
Yeah, well, that play yesterday by Adam Eaton where he booted the ball in the outfield and it ran all the way, and then a couple
Hawk
runs
didn't even
scored.
say anything.
No,
the guy
of course
hit,
not.
I think it was Kenny's Vargas hit the ball. Hawk didn't say anything. It got by Eaton. He didn't say anything, and he's like, and 3-run score.
Yeah, just keep playing, I guess.
Yeah.
But they did win today, although they had to make it dramatic, of course.
David Robertson tried to blow it.
I think they won 8-7 in the 10th inning. But I mean, it is just ridiculous.
The way they win games is a joke now. Like they don't win. They win games because the other team gives it to them now.
Well, now you can't rely on David Robertson, which you haven't been able to rely on him all season. He was so good with the Yankees.
It probably doesn't help that he doesn't get consistent innings because he could go a week or two.
Yeah, he'll go a week or two without pitching.
Yeah, there's no save opportunities for him, and then the few he gets recently, he's either been blowing them or he's been coming very close to blowing them, like today.
Well, and talk about another team that's doing good. I mean another team that's not doing so good. The Detroit Tigers are in a little bit of a funk. And,
they're
and
starting
of course
pitching.
They are because they just lost to the White Sox, who I think still have the worst winning percentage in the American League.
I think it's the second worst behind the Athletics.
Yeah, the Athletics are bad too. Whew.
Yeah, they've been on a good streak. Except with the White Sox, I don't know if you saw this play. Adam Eaton hits a ground ball to the shortstop. He jogs down the line. The shortstop fields it. He stops, just stops and stands there. The shortstop bobbles it. He then runs to first base, and then about 5 feet in front of the base, he stops running, and it's a terrible throw off the mark. The first baseman, I think was Kenny's Vargas, had enough time to go off the base to catch the ball and then run back and tag the base before Adam Eaton could make it.
Yeah, he doesn't.
The fundamentals.
He's definitely not hustling. He's so fast too, and he's not hustling. He keeps hitting home runs though, which is very strange. He has I think 4 already.
4. He should have hit one in the game they beat the Twins. He went off the top of that right field wall. Except Adam Eaton, you're supposed to be a guy leading this team, and you can't even execute the fundamentals of a baseball game. That's something you're supposed to learn at the low levels of the minor leagues. Granted, you need to know that in college and high school and when you're playing Little League. That's stuff you should be learning then. Adam Eaton, why aren't you hustling? Why are you just missing routine plays? I mean, you can say, the White Sox play doesn't have anything to do with the manager or the coaching staff, except the manager and the coaching staff are responsible for the fundamentals that are just not being executed and are making the team look like a bunch of clowns on the field.
When they got Adam Eaton, who was that for?
Hector Santiago, and he's got an ERA around 250 right now for the Angels.
That was the Hector Santiago trade, okay. Yeah, and then Matt Davidson came over when they traded Addison Reed, right?
Yep, and that trade hasn't worked out
well.
Both
trades haven't worked out well. So, what does that tell you? That tells you that the management is not doing a good job.
Yeah, that's what I think. The front
Rick
office
Hahn is not doing a good job at all.
No, I have friends that absolutely hate Rick Hahn. And
I think most people are fed up with him.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people thought I remember Ken Harrell. I remember Hawk was like, "Oh, he was the MVP of the offseason. He's just the savior of White Sox baseball."
Yeah, not necessarily.
Somehow they're all just as bad as they were in 2013 when they went 63 and 99.
Well, and it's even worse because the expectations were a lot higher this year than they ever were.
And they have they have a ton of players, and now they have to sell.
Time. Right.
And I know people are like, "Oh, we don't want to trade Sale." Well, by the time you're good again, he's going to be old and washed up.
That's a good point. It could be, 5 or 6 years before they make a postseason berth again or something.
Right, because
by that time, Sale will be over 30, well over 30.
I mean, eventually, it doesn't matter if your front office is good or bad. You just need a change after a certain period of time. Look at the Red Sox. They realized it was time to move on from the Theo Epstein regime. Not that Theo was doing a bad job. It was just time to move on. And they did that. They got they hired some new scouts. They sent Epstein to the Cubs. They promoted Ben Cherington.
Right, and look what happens with them.
Exactly.
They go and win the World Series in 2013, but other than that, I mean,
even though it was mostly
been up and down.
Yeah, even though that was mostly Epstein's players that won that World Series.
Most of them were, yep. That's for sure.
And Kenny Williams and his staff have been around. They've been around for so long. It's just time for change. Rick Hahn's doing a terrible job. I mean, he has the worst winning percentage of any general manager in White Sox history.
Yeah,
and they've had some bad teams.
Right. I mean, they have had really bad teams. They've also had really good teams, but that obviously none of that has happened with Rick Hahn. They just haven't done anything. I mean, Kenny Williams gets promoted to a different position, and now he sort of oversees what Rick Hahn does. Yeah. But of course, it's pretty much up to Rick Hahn to make the decisions.
And now it really looks it looks like with Kenny Williams, it was more of you suck at your job. We can't fire you, so we're gonna promote you so that you're not doing as much. And it's not working out. They just need a fresh start, new scouts, because the whole Kenny Williams regime, if you look at their drafts, they've done a terrible job at drafting and developing position players. They've done a nice job at drafting and developing their own pitchers, except then they have to go and trade all those pitchers for the position players that they're not developing.
Right.
And what happens? They trade Gio Gonzalez, Brandon McCarthy, and Trevor Cahill for Nick Swisher. Then he comes and bats .215, and then they trade him to the Yankees for cash considerations and Wilson Betemit the next offseason. Like, how well did those two trades work out? Not at all.
And, of course, you look at who they have in the infield right now. I mean, Alexi Ramirez is playing horribly. And, I mean, he came into the league when he was in his late 20s or something. He's
out of Cuba. They signed him out of Cuba.
Is he 34 now? I think he's 34 years old.
34. Right? The two-error game on Monday, that was inexcusable, his play in the field.
I mean, he's almost done with baseball as it is, and what has his career had to show for it? He had the grand slam during their playoff push in 2008. That's the extent of his, dominance, pretty much. He hasn't really done anything. He's really bad defensively. He makes some nice plays now and then, but he's really bad defensively. He's sort of like Starlin Castro, only Castro's a lot younger and has a lot more upside.
Right, and he did win the Silver Slugger last year. He did and he was a finalist for the Gold Glove Award. That's when they should have traded him. They should have known his value's not going to get any higher than that.
Right.
And now you probably couldn't even get a bag of peanuts for him. And I mean,
seriously, I don't think anyone wants him.
No. And there's a lot of teams that would have paid a good price to get him in the offseason, and Rick Hahn's like, no. So then he goes and trades Marcus Semien, who's young and has tremendous upside.
He's doing okay in Oakland, too.
Yeah, a guy that'll provide power from the middle infield. He's batting .280 with 7 home runs. And Alexi Ramirez, he made 2 awful errors on Monday. Robin Ventura should have said, you need to get your head together. It was a rough game. Take a seat. You come back on Wednesday. Nope, Robin Ventura puts Alexi back in the lineup on Tuesday, and what does he do? Makes another error.
Right, and then on the other side there, you have Carlos Sanchez, who had a big hit earlier today to take the lead for the White Sox.
His only hit of the
season. But, I mean, other than that, Carlos Sanchez, he doesn't have the hype that all these younger players have. He doesn't have the hype of Addison Russell and Chris Bryant and Francisco Lindor and all these other people who are doing really good.
Well, he has, for White Sox prospects, he has tremendous hype. That's how bad they are.
Right, but, I mean, nationally, no one knows who Carlos Sanchez is, and he hasn't really, lived up to it, and they were really trying to get Micah Johnson in there, but Rick Hahn decided that Micah Johnson needed to be sent down for some more training
Even though he was
in the
probably
minor leagues, even though I think he's a lot better than Carlos Sanchez. I think he's going to be a lot better.
And he was hitting the best of their infielders minus first base. He was hitting better than Carlos Sanchez, Emilio Bonifacio, Alexi Ramirez, Connor Gillespie, and Gordon Beckham.
Right.
And those are the guys that are playing second, short, and third.
And those people are still on the team, which is a little surprising. I mean, it sort of makes sense now. I mean, if you looked back during the offseason at what they would have at second base and what they would have at third base and what they would have at catcher, you would be like, well, even with these offseason acquisitions, they're probably still not going to make the playoffs. A lot of people thought they would. I thought they had a good chance of at least getting a wild card.
Because of what you listed right there.
Yeah.
Catcher and third base. Now, we don't want to dive too much into how awful their catcher is because everyone knows that.
Yeah, we've all ripped on Tyler Flowers. I
mean, he can't call a game. He can't hit. He can't pitch frame, and you know what else? He can't throw out base runners.
It's a sad day when Giovanni Soto is a better catcher than you.
Yeah, Soto started like 3 or 4 consecutive games that ended today.
Right, he hasn't done bad either.
No, he's done better than Tyler Flowers.
Oh, yeah.
Flowers has thrown out 2 of 37 base runners this year.
Right, I mean,
that's awful.
That tells you can pretty much run all day. Now, if you look at the Cubs, David Ross might not be able to hit, but he can throw out base runners
and he
day.
can pitch frame. He makes pitches out of the zone and can bring them back to make them look like strikes for the umpires. And him and Miguel Montero do a fantastic job of that.
Yeah, they're a lot more valuable than Tyler Flowers is valuable to the White Sox. That's for sure.
Yeah, I've actually been wondering if the White Sox are thinking about it all calling up Matt Davidson, even though he's hitting .215 at AAA. I mean, surely he can do something better than Gordon Beckham and Connor Gillespie at third base.
I would think if the season is lost, which is getting to that point.
It's been lost for a while.
Right. I mean, if they fall, 15 under, 20 under, God forbid, I mean, then maybe you call up Matt Davidson. Other than that, I mean, they might as well just stick with what they got. Maybe they'll take 3 out of 4 from this Tigers team, and it'll be a pretty good week for them, I guess. But other than that, not very good. It's obviously not looking very good on the south side right now.
No, and if you really think about it, the downhill started when Chris Sale broke his foot.
That's true, when he broke his foot. I think that was early in spring training when he was loading stuff off of his pickup truck and something fell in his foot.
Oh, yeah, he jumped off the truck and broke his foot.
Yeah, something happened where, it's one of those fluke injuries. The Cubs have those all the time, but the Sox had one of their own.
Sammy Sosa sneezing so hard he injured his back, went on the DL.
Or the Bulls when Carlos Boozer, he tripped over his gym bag answering the door. You also have that. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues with Chicago injuries, strange injuries. But the Sox had one with Sale, so that didn't start off on the right foot. And
at least
Quintana hasn't pitched very well. Samardzija's been bad. And then the other 2 pitchers are pretty much non-existent.
Yeah.
And now Rodon's pitching okay. But
he's been lit up a few times in a row. And the Boozer injury is probably the worst of them all, except really, if the Sale injury wasn't enough to convince White Sox fans, Samardzija blew up on opening day, and then they lost their first 4 games. And Rick Hahn's like, oh, no, this is just a bad
Didn't
stretch.
they lose on opening day for the first time in a long time? I know.
They lost like 10-1.
Right. I know it was 2010. It was probably earlier. They won all their home openers from 2010 to 2014. It could have been before.
Yeah, they couldn't even win home opener this year. They lost that 6-0.
No, and of course I didn't go to the home opener. And of course the year I don't go, they lose. So maybe I was the reason for this Sox team starting off on.
Then stop going. Then they'll keep losing.
I guess I've only been to the one game with you this year in May, but other than that, it's definitely been bad, and I don't know if you can put all the blame on Robin Ventura, but certainly a big part of it can be on Robin Ventura.
The fundamentals of baseball, fielding a ground ball, throwing the ball to first base.
Yeah, if you can't do that, you're in a heap of trouble.
As an outfielder, not letting a ground ball up the middle get by you. These are just fundamentals. Catching the ball, Jose Abreu keeps dropping the ball at first base. He can't pick the ball. Tyler Flowers, when he makes a strong throw to second base to try to throw out a base runner, it goes into center field. These are just fundamentals that are not being executed.
Right, and especially now that the AL Central looks like it's a pretty good division again. I know
there's no room for the White Sox to be good.
I know all the teams started off kind of slow, but the Twins have been playing good. Not as of late, but they've still been playing pretty good. The Tigers have been, the Tigers all season. They'll probably make a late push. The Indians have been better, and Kansas City has been very good all year. So, I mean, there's really no room for the White Sox, no matter how good they do or how much they can